what I wanted to talk about as well is as far as content creation. There's a part of me, I'm getting fucking tired of that word. I'll just randomly putting that out there.
Yeah.
But with Burnout, as far as just creating whatever, not even necessarily content, I guess, but whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's streaming, gaming, or whatever. I know Cups and I have talked about it a while. We've had but both of us have kind of had somewhat, I think, similar journeys in that process of, getting into it, going super hard, focusing really hard, getting your really high of high. I'm in there, I'm doing what I'm doing, and then you're kind of like, wait a minute, what am I doing? Kind of thing. Step back, get back, reassess kind of what you're doing, and getting back into it. So yeah, what if I guess Cups, you can kind of go first as far as what you've kind of experienced through just Burnout and just creating content and where you're at as far as making
I think
stuff.
I think Burnout is a completely normal thing that content creators or whatever you want to call them go through, and I don't know, there's could be a lot of different reasons for that kind of thing, but I noticed kind of recently that I've become kind of bitter and a little competitive and putting I'm not where I want to be in my streaming career. I don't stream as much as I want to. I don't make as many YouTube videos as I want. And it's because of all this other stuff. You know what I mean? And I felt myself doing that kind of thing. Let's just say, for example, Eric's videos aren't even really all that good. Blah, blah, blah. He just got kind of lucky. And I just didn't like how negative I was becoming in that regard. I wasn't holding myself accountable. I kind of just felt like I was pointing the finger at other things. You know what I mean? So I kind of wanted to step back, reassess all that stuff. It's kind of like the same time I started following everybody on Twitter. Well, I'm not doing the things that I need to do to make myself where I want to be. You know what I mean? And whenever I first got started, got started, but started kind of taking off, where I was 200, 300, 400, 500 viewers and stuff like that. People were watching all my YouTube videos, chats blowing up, all that stuff. I was just so focused and excited and happy with the stuff that I was making. You know what I mean? And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm kind of falling out of grace a little bit with Monster Hunter at this point or something like that. But I think a lot of times with most people, it's a lack of confidence in your ability to create something that people want to watch. Because I'm blaming Monster Hunter for the lack of content, or the Monster Hunter community for the lack of interest or something like that. I always have things that I'm interested in my life. You know what I mean? I'm always interested in a TV show or a book or some music or just different aspects of life and things like that. Why am I not making content for that kind of stuff? Well, it's because I don't think I can succeed there. I have to do Monster Hunter stuff. That is, I cannot succeed outside of Monster Hunter stuff. So I have to make Monster Hunter stuff. So then you kind of start to become hold a vendetta or vindictive towards it. And that's not how it has to be at all. It's my own kind of lack of confidence in my ability to make things.
What do you got, Mike?
So I was thinking about that recently. And I was thinking of when I was playing PSO2, I was like, I really like this game. And, Anamana and a few other creators from that community, they, for some reason, they kind of see me in that circle. And I'm like, I've only made 3 videos and maybe one was successful.
Imposter syndrome.
And I don't feel like I belong there. You know?
Yeah.
And I feel like if I make a new video on New Genesis, no one's going to watch it. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I don't want to pigeonhole myself, Mm-hmm. But it's like Monster Hunter is working out for me, but it's like, what if I want to do something else?
Yep.
Right. And I know people say do it because you like it, but it's like, yeah, but it gets to a point where you're getting the numbers that are that satisfies you. And then when you're not getting those numbers, the dopamine high is not there.
Mm.
So it's why am I doing this?
It's a tough difference to think about and kind of accept, but because I've been in the same way, especially with PSO2. I didn't know anything about that game until last year. And then I looked at, I forget what it's called. It's a Solinome or something. It's statistics. And I was in the top 10 of people who stream PSO. And I was like, oh, well, that's cool. And you're right. That dopamine is cool. But while it was happening, I just really loved digging into PSO, just learning about it and playing it and everything. And I wasn't playing it for the numbers. I didn't know anything about it. Why would anybody come to the stream if this guy doesn't know anything? So I think there's a part where yes, you do think about numbers, because anybody that says, oh, well, just ignore numbers that's a fucking lie. You're gonna look at it and you're gonna think about it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, if you make videos 7 days a week for 3 years and you still have 5 views on those videos,
that's terrible. That's
like you're you know what I mean? What the hell are you doing? Like
yeah.
You know
You
what I
gotta
mean?
change something.
Yeah, you gotta. So I don't think there's a ignore numbers and just do content, or look at all the numbers and don't care about your content. It's just a balance, just like everything.
It's yeah.
And I think for PSO, I'm in the same boat, right? Like there's these other people, like Animaniac being one of them, and he's like such a great guy just in general, but he shares a lot of other content creators, and I personally look at him as one of the larger voices in the creator space for PSO2. So for him to do that is like super cool. For one, just for again the numbers, but for two, for the quality of what he puts out. For him to see us as we just got into this is like, yeah, this is something I would co-sign. Is like that's like, all right, well that's must badass. Be that we're doing something right. So just keep doing what you're doing, kind of thing. But yeah, I mean. Just keep making your PSO stuff. If that's what you
and
like.
It's like kind of
at the end of the day, you're not gonna want to do it.
Yeah, and kind of like going back to what I was saying, like who am I to talk about where other people are, where the community is, or anything like that. I stream once every 2 weeks. I haven't put out a YouTube video in 6 months or something like that. Like, let's hold myself a little bit more accountable for the kind of stuff I want to put out. And it's not just like let's just put out a guide, because I know that if I put out a weapon guide, I know if I put out some sweet in-game sets and stuff like that, that it'll get views. You know what I mean? Like Insect Glaive in-game, sets and guides and weapon guide. I know that'll get clicks. I know it'll probably get 15, 20,000, if not more, if the right people share it or whatever. But is that really what I want to put out? Is that, you know what I mean? Because I want people to be there, for me and the kind of stuff that I creatively put out, not just screen sharing my sets and then moving on. So it's also kind of like whatever you want to put out there and leave as your mark of this is Cups content. Is this who you know what I mean? Is this what I'm putting out there? Just me screenshotting sets and then moving on? No, I don't really find that enjoyable. So let's not do that.
Yeah, it's the same thing of what you want to watch, right? Like, I think all of us have kind of went through a phase of watching a bunch of things, whether it's content or just shows or music, and then we don't like that anymore. And that's gonna, I feel, reflect in what you put out, right? Like this podcast is a perfect example of my progression in general. I enjoyed streaming a whole bunch. I mean, I still enjoy it. Meeting new people and all that kind of stuff. And then, they've hit a point where it's like, look, I don't want to talk to 80 people anymore. 40 of you are annoying and are saying shit that I don't care about. I just want to talk to my friends. So that's literally what this is a product of, is that. Like, now I have a pod where I'm talking with people who I know I want to talk to, who are like-minded, we're into the same thing. So there's just like, and I think this podcast wouldn't have happened if I didn't experience my form of burnout through streaming. And it's like, why am I booting up the stream if I'm just going to be annoyed when anybody shows up and talks to me? There's probably something like wrong.
It's like everybody talks about imposter syndrome being like the worst thing. I mean, sometimes it's exactly what you need. Like, am I a fraud? And then you look at your shit. Yeah, I am. I just got completely lucky.
Yeah.
So let's stop doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And with you doing music, Tompi, how has that kind of affected you?
Yeah, I think what Cups was talking about before, that bitterness was huge for me. That always looking at other people and comparing yourself to them and convincing yourself that you deserve what they have because you're working this hard and doing this. And remember, especially like SoundCloud era, like 2017, 2018-ish, me and my friends would work our asses off, right? We would push ourselves so hard to make the best shit we could make. And then these dumb rappers who would just like, my X is Y bars, like my money is green like Piccolo, right? Just the dumbest shit, right?
And just like sampling 15 other people's music and
just stealing beats
like
and they would get 100K, and then every piece of progression that we got, we would compare, and it's like we've got this group and we're dropping shit and getting 7,000, 10,000 plays everything we drop, and it's great, but we're still looking at these other people who are getting more, and we're working way harder, and then we're dropping albums and doing all this shit, and we're not looking at what
you're
we're
workshopping
getting,
and
right,
all
and
this
we're
other
just
stuff.
comparing. Then I remember, I think it was that Kendrick Lamar interview with Rick Rubin. He talks about that process of that comparison of how hard you work, and he talks about this whole thing of falling back in love with just the process of creating and bettering yourself as an artist in your craft, right? Not just to do with music, but just to do with anything to do with making something, right? So that's when I stepped back from, you know, all the groups that I was part of and all these goals that I had, and I was like, oh, what can't I do with music? I can't play the guitar, right? So I bought a guitar, and now I can play the guitar. And I can't play the piano, so I bought a piano, and now I can play the piano, right? So
Yeah, all
that
about moving
process
forward.
of just learning who gives a fuck what everyone else is doing, right? Like, what can you do to be better? Because there will come a point where that talent can't be ignored.
Ooh, man, that was like one of the best quotes I've ever heard. Sorry to interrupt, but like, become undeniable.
Yeah,
that was
100%. Right,
that was like the best shit I've ever heard.
Yeah, and now I'm in a spot now with music where I'm working with artists in my city that I would consider myself a fan of fucking 2-3 years ago. You know, I'm making money off of this shit. I'm producing, I'm writing, I'm getting cuts in songs, and you know, my bank account is growing from this shit. I'm planning my future around this shit, and it's all because I stopped looking at this circle of people that they were just rapping like I was rapping. They just happened to get lucky, and started thinking, how can I like become like good at what I'm doing?
Better.
And started, like just looking at it in a selfish sense, not being bitter anymore, just loving the process of creating.
Right.
And I haven't felt burnout since. I've never felt any. Every time I sit down and I open up Ableton, I can make shit. I've never had any sense of burnout since then.
Instead of getting frustrated at your lack of progress, get excited at the possibility of being better.
And
you know what I mean?
Seeing something you can't do, and that is like, it's exciting now. I see an instrument that I'm interested in playing, and I want to buy it. Fuck it, you know, right? It's like it's no longer a comparison. It's just, what can't I do, and how can I get that skill? Yeah,
sure.
Cool.
Yeah,